on that June day back in 1989 when I arrived in Atlanta, Georgia, that I was not just accepting a job with my airline, but signing up for a lifestyle that would be a ride I could have never imagined. After 6 weeks of training, airplane evacuation both on land and water, well, in a swimming pool, CPR, first aid, extensive testing, 90% or higher you were asked to leave, weight checks weekly, and basic serving procedures, I earned my wings. Where would they assign me to fly out of? New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Salt Lake City, Dallas. What? Dallas? Sorry, Corey. Okay, well, the weather was warm and it was cheap to live. We hardly worked. Translation, we laid by the pool. We were on beepers. This was long before cell phones. And because Dallas-Fort Worth was so big, I always had my suitcase and my uniform in the backseat of my car in case I would get beeped. I'd pull over to the nearest payphone and then report to the airport. Well, Texas wasn't for me. People actually put on a full face of makeup to go to the grocery store. I did meet my first boyfriend while on a night out. Vinny was in town from New York, and I spent the next year begging schedulers to send me to New York for my layovers. After that first year, I transferred to Cincinnati and then eventually settled in New York to be my base. That's where all my flights originate, and I've been there ever since. Being based in New York the last 22 years has only enhanced this crazy career of mine. I've learned how to be a stronger person, ask for what I need, not be afraid to speak up when you disagree or think an injustice has been made. As much as New Yorkers have a bad rap for being short, hurt, or rude, they are the people you really want to have your back when times get tough. It's a cultural thing, which I'm more than happy to be a part of. So many crazy, happy, sad, scary, aha moments, so many stories, it's hard to know where to begin. So I'll start with the aha moments. The extraordinary moments in people and things I've been able to experience because of this career I chose 27 years ago. So I have some seniority, which means I get priority of choosing my flights, days off, and vacations. I fell in love with the south of France, or the Côte d'Azur, more than 20 years ago. Imagine how excited I was to discover my airline had the only nonstop daily from JFK to Nice, France. So I hopped on this route about 10 years ago, because before I just didn't have enough seniority to be able to fly it. This route has afforded me experiences like I've never dreamed. The celebrities I've interacted with, Elton John, Bruce Springsteen, Ron Howard, 50 Cent, Kevin Bacon, Vice President Gore, Sidney Poitier, just to name a few. I met my best friend skiing on a layover there. She currently lives in Monte Carlo. And I was even able to attend Prince Albert's wedding. That has been the side of life that has really been a ride. So my other route, which I've been flying, has been to Tel Aviv. Oh, Israel, if you haven't been, you really need to go. The word I would describe is magical. The people, the culture, the history, the weather, the beaches, and the food. Best food ever and healthy. So when I fly most of these trips, I'm the head flight attendant or the purser. That means I have to solve all the problems at 35,000 feet. Between passengers, smoothing over something that my company has done to a passenger, or even sometimes refereeing between two flight attendants. So up to a couple years ago, we flew the 747 over to Tel Aviv. Every night at 11:30, we would depart JFK, except for Thursdays, we'd leave at 7:30 in order to arrive on Friday before Shabbat, which is sundown. So it's me, my crew of 12, and 300 plus passengers. What could go wrong? Haha, what's gonna happen this flight? It becomes a bring it, because I feel like after all these years, I can figure anything out. There's always the medical emergencies, which 90% of the time is just exhaustion and dehydration. The negotiation with the religious men who need to stand the aisle to pray at sunrise. Excuse me, gentlemen, I need to move all 40 of you out of the aisles to the back of the aircraft so we can pass through the aisles and serve breakfast. Then there's the challenge of the 30-minute prior to landing rule that everyone has to stay in their seats once we've entered Israeli airspace. This is especially tricky once you've just fed everyone breakfast and coffee, and everyone on the plane has to use the 7 lavatories in 30 minutes. My favorite is business class, trying to convince the pilots to hurry as the 4 of them are switching out to use the lavatories that ties up 2 out of the 3 business labs for 15 minutes. I'm sorry, sir, I know you paid $10,000 for this seat, and you really want to pee before you have to sit down. I'm trying to get the pilots to hurry. Then there's the time I was patting myself on the back. Well, we are 3.5 hours into the flight. No medicals, meal service went back well in economy. Yep, I'm a rock star. Then one of my Israeli flight attendants runs up and says, oh my God, I have a problem. This lady's passed out on her seat and her cat is running up and down the aisle. I finally caught it and it's back in its crate. What should I do with it? So I ended up babysitting the cat in the crate by the jump seat for the remainder of the flight, so the poor thing wasn't thirsty over the next 11 hours. I have to wear many hats during these flights. I've quieted babies, I've stowed wedding dresses in crew rests, I figured out how to feed everyone when they haven't given us enough food, I've had to administer CPR and first aid, and yes, even played policeman. I once got in between two grown men on a Tel Aviv flight that were coming to blows. And then there was a time going to Amsterdam. I was second in charge, so I was in charge of the economy cabin instead of the whole plane. A couple from the US I had noticed were talking very loud to each other and cursing quite a bit during the service. I went over and told them that there were families around and they needed to lower their voice and clean up their language. Then I noticed he would intermittently grab her face or around the neck. When I passed to pick up their meal trays, they had turned them upside down on the tray table and there was food everywhere. He had actually smashed some food in her face. I leaned over and said quietly with the nicest smile on my face, I've had enough of this bullshit. I told the woman to get her things, promptly moved her to the only empty seat I had far away from him. Then I went back to the seat and noticed the fifth of liquor that was half empty in the seat pocket in front of him. I took it and said to him quietly, you better look out that window and make me forget you're on this airplane. If I hear one more peep out of you, we are landing this plane in Iceland and you'll get thrown in jail. The amount of money it will cost you to get out of jail, you could have bought yourself 2 first-class tickets. Is that clear? Well, I never heard a peep out of him again. So maybe 30 minutes later, again, I was up talking to the other purser, telling her what happened, feeling pretty good of myself, like, okay, I handled that well. Then the flight attendant came running up from coach saying, hurry, hurry, get back here, you thought it was over. Yes, the guy's traveling partner, the woman, was naked from the waist down.
Oh my God.
And she had urinated all over herself.
Oh my
So after cleanup, thank God for the hazmat kits, she passed out, we landed in Amsterdam, and they were both promptly arrested. The physical aspect is a little harsh as well. I've had broken my foot a couple times, the beverage cart weighing 250 pounds flipped over on me in turbulence. I'm not a great sleeper, more than a napper. I'm currently out going back in May after a complete reconstruct on my foot after so many years on my feet. I'm blessed though because in all these years, knock on wood, wherever it is, there's never been an emergency landing and I'd like to continue that streak. The mental aspect has been a little rough at times too. 9/11 was tough on a lot of people. I was on my way to New York commuting to work a flight to Munich when they turned us around, landed us in Cincinnati, and it took me about 12 hours to get home after finding a rental car. My children were 3 and not quite 1, and they were staying with a young nanny, and their father, my ex, was working next to the Sears Tower. So the anxiety of trying to get home, worrying about something happening in Chicago was intense. I worked one of the first flights we operated after 9/11. I called the company and volunteered, actually with my parents urging. They said, do it now or you'll never go back. New York was still closed down, but my flight originated in Chicago, and I went to Atlanta and then on to Seattle. It was so long ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. It still gives me chills. Riding the L to the airport, CTA workers shouting, be safe, take care of yourself. The first flight to Atlanta was uneventful, but once we in Atlanta, it was eerie. As our crew walked to the next gate through the concourse, there were literally hundreds of people at every gate, congregating at each gate, waiting. People were shouting and begging, please, please, come work our flight, we need to get home. People were offering us money. Once we got to the Seattle flight, everyone broke out in applause, and every passenger that boarded hugged us. So once things got back up and running in New York, every flight I worked was a tragedy. On every flight, at least one flight attendant, because I was based in New York, had lost a family member or had a story of one of their families or friends escaping the hell of that day. As time went on, it felt a little better. Things were starting to get back to normal. November, I was working a flight back from Istanbul. The flights were more than half empty. Nobody was traveling in those days. We had 4 men board. They knew each other, but all had decided to sit separate all over the aircraft, with one in business class. During this time, we had air marshals on every international flight. About 2 hours prior to landing in New York, all 4 men got up at the same time. Each went into a lavatory. Now, my purser at the time, who had been an old Pan Am woman, who had really seen a lot of action, had actually taxied out of Tehran while lying on the floor because they were being shot at, was visibly shaken. I was told to stay up front in the galley with hot water brewed in case they tried to storm the cockpit. All I could think about is how pissed I was. I was not going out like this without even saying goodbye to my girls. Fuck this. I'm not going out like this. Of course, nothing happened. They didn't get into trouble because they hadn't done anything wrong. But the air marshals later confirmed they were testing us to see our reaction, to see the air marshal's reaction, enough to get a reaction, but not break a rule. So the positives have always outweighed the negatives. I've gotten to give my parents free tickets for the last 27 years. My mom even went on a working 5-day trip with me to Jordan and Petra. My kids have been all over the world. They've met my friends in France and Israel. And my older daughter has even traveled quite a bit on her own. One of her college essays centered around the 5 senses, and she paired it with the cities around the world, smelling the bread baking in Paris in the streets, hearing the vendors shouting in Hebrew at the open market in Tel Aviv, etc., etc. I feel like this has enabled them to become independent and worldly. I'm not gonna lie, like most parents, I've been very sleep deprived at times, arriving home from Tel Aviv at 10 a.m. after landing in New York at 5:30 in the morning, going through customs, catching my flight home to Chicago, waiting for the bus to the employee lot, to drive home, jump in bed by 11 a.m., only to get up at 2:30 to pick my kids up at Bell. All after a 12-hour flight and a 20-hour workday. Then there was a time my company announced a 38% pay cut, and we had 6 weeks to prepare for it. I worked an additional job thanks to a good friend of mine who helped for the next 3 years to make it work until my company was in the black again. So while I've been gone from my kids a couple nights every week, been single for the last 15 years, it goes like this. What? You're a flight attendant? What an awesome job. I love that. To 3 months into it, why do you have to go out of town again? Really? It's only 2 nights, Sunday and Monday. There's nothing going on anyway. Why don't you get together with your buddies? It never works out. I do truly feel like the good of this job, this lifestyle, far outweighs the bad. If I only knew when I took this so-called job I was hired for, I was really more than that. It was a whole lifestyle. I wouldn't have changed a thing. Thank you.
Come fly with me.